Sony has amazing IPs. PSVR 2 is on the horizon. So let's talk about it, dudes. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Husky Pup over at NGI, and today in this video we are going over the top games, the top franchises, the top beloved IPs that Sony has in their arsenal that they can use to create PSVR 2 games. Now, we already know they are doing that with Horizon, so we're going to get into the ones excluding that game. And the first one on the list is no other than God of War itself. How fucking cool would it be able to play as Kratos in first person? You are the Kratos of destruction and tearing shit up. It doesn't have to be the new game or the Ragnarok game. It could be older games. It could be a brand new type of game in its world, or a side story content that brings us back to Greek and we can actually wake up from a bed slumber and be Kratos and we just go about our day destroying shit. I feel like that would be insane and incredible, and let me know in the comments. I do read and respond to every single comment below of how you feel about God of War. The next one is a no-brainer because we gotta have Gran Turismo in VR. I mean, we had Drive Club on the PSVR 1, which I do hope they bring into PSVR 2. However, if we can't have that or a Drive Club 2, why the hell not can we have Gran Turismo 7 in VR? Just so we can grab our steering wheels, put our headset on, put the fan on us, and really feel like we are driving these Ferraris that we really can't afford, but in the VR world we can. Some people can, but you know, I'm just speaking in my perspective. I feel like Gran Turismo would be an insane no-brainer to have on the PSVR 2. Next one, we're going to get into a third-person or first-person couple of titles, and the first one of that list is SOCOM. If y'all don't know about SOCOM, y'all have been asleep, because SOCOM is one of the greatest tactical strategy FPS, 3PS, TPS, third-person shooter you could possibly imagine. With the SOCOM confrontation that I played as a kid for endless amount of hours, joined like 87 clans, always was trying to find people to play with, and I was pretty nasty. But it's sad to see that we haven't seen a SOCOM since the PS3, and it's kind of much needed at this point. What other better way to revitalize SOCOM other than in VR? But you could argue and say we have Firewall coming, but you know, it's still not SOCOM. And another FPS that we can use is Killzone. Now, if we can't have SOCOM in VR, why the hell not can we have Killzone? If you don't know about Killzone, we had a Killzone on our PS4, and there still seems to be no more Killzone ever since that last Killzone. Now, I don't know if it flopped or if it pooped itself, but Killzone would be an amazing experience to bring back up. And if it didn't come back, well then what the hell are you doing with the IP, Sony? The next one on the list is Resistance. Like I said, we're going to be knocking down these FPS titles, but Resistance was a fan favorite game. It had multiple games, especially on the PS3 era, and then it kind of just like disappeared and faded out of existence. It was a first-person shooter monster type game, and you just had all these different elements in it, and it was well received, well respected. It just kind of flopped on the last installment, and Sony never really brought it back, unfortunately. But if we could have Resistance in VR on the PSVR 2, I feel like that would be phenomenal. And to go back into a different type of game genre, we have Ratchet and Clank. What other way could be to play Ratchet and Clank in VR? And before you say, well, that doesn't make any sense, NGI, that doesn't make any sense, Husky, listen, dudes, if we could have Psychonauts in VR on the PSVR 1, there is no reason why we can't have Ratchet and Clank in VR. Sony could find a way. Even if we don't even play as Ratchet and we just play as Clank, we could be a sidekick to the main character and still have fun and a fun loving experience. And the next one we're going to get into is Twisted Metal. This kind of goes back into Gran Turismo, but instead of it being a super simulated VR racing game, we have a death trap, crazy killing racing game. It's not really a racing game, but more of like a demolition derby of death where you kill each other, and you could have that in VR where you could be the clown man driving your cars and crashing into people, pressing buttons on inside of your car to shoot weapons and missiles, or maybe you can team up with somebody and you can open up the roof and get on the Gatling gun and start shooting people. I mean, the possibilities in VR are endless, and we need a Twisted Metal. And even at this point, I know this is a VR video, but I would take a on-screen TV only Twisted Metal if we can't get the PSVR 2 version. And we cannot have this Sony IP list without featuring one of the most successful, most craziest, bizarrest recent titles of Among Us titles, which is Spider-Man in VR. Sony, you have the IP of Spider-Man. You can do this. We could swing around. We have the technology. We could swing around New York. We could fly around. We could pick up citizens in our arm, like kind of like Iron Man VR did. I mean, we could have the 4K visuals to shoot the webs. Everybody wants this, Sony. I don't know why you don't see this, but Sony, please, please, please give us a full-fledged Spider-Man VR game in PSVR 2, because this would be not only a console seller, but a fucking definitive moment in VR gaming. I shit you not. The next one we're going to get into is, we already know that Uncharted closed the gap of the stories, but it left room open for his daughter to proceed the game. And if that's a spoiler, I 100% apologize, but the game is really old by now, so you should know. But we do know about Uncharted, so why can't we have a future installment in VR? Whether it's going back in the classics, or we go into the future, or if it's a completely side story where you play as maybe Sonny and you're driving a plane to pick up Nathan Drake on those missions that you left him in. I mean, dudes, we could have anything with this Uncharted IP. We could just have a straight up run and gun event. Maybe you make the game like the first game, but it's in VR, or maybe you make a treasure hunting game, or I don't even know, bro. But Uncharted, you have the IP, Sony. We could use an Uncharted PSVR 2 title. And this one, boys, I've been saving this one to space it out, but imagine this. Imagine a huge MMO backed by a big, huge publisher, and I'm talking Sony here, EverQuest. EverQuest was a traditional on the PlayStation series. Now, I know I don't think Sony owns the IP anymore to this, but they used to own the IP. But remember, guys, this is a video to talk about, and if we had EverQuest in PSVR 2, it would shit on all the other MMOs. But there is MMOs out there that are coming to PSVR 2, and I talked about it in a different video, and make sure you click that video so you can understand what I'm talking about with those games. But imagine EverQuest in VR, a true fully fledged back AAA MMO that you can have your grips on. But this one was kind of like a curveball, because I'm unsure if Sony even owns the IP at this point, or if it's owned by another developer, and we haven't seen an EverQuest on PlayStation since the PS2. So the next one we're going to get into was a PS Vita title, or a PSP title, I believe, and it's called, and I think it was on the PS3, it is Invisimals. Invisimals is a slept on title that not many probably people know about, but it seems to be a open world adventure combining in a collectamon type game, like Pokemon, like Digimon, like etc of those games. And this, having this in VR, would fantasize and satisfy all these creators' itches of a Pokemon VR experience, because let's face it, Nintendo is always going to do their own thing, and I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get on the VR train, so we're probably not going to see a Pokemon VR game anytime soon. Give it like 20 to 30 years and maybe we'll get our first official Pokemon game. But if we can't have the official, why the hell not can we have a game that's like it, has the similar qualities, that scratches those itches? And Sony has that IP of Invisimals, so maybe they could try to do something in that respected genre, so we could have our PSVR 2 Pokemon type fantasy scratched. And the last two games we're going to talk about on this list, the first one being Bloodborne. Obviously, Bloodborne has the IP of this game. They came on record saying it many times that Bloodborne is theirs and theirs only. And if you have seen the numbers with Bloodborne, y'all know it's a super fan favorite, and the only way they could enhance it even higher than what it already is either a second Bloodborne game or make a Bloodborne VR version. Now, honestly, I don't know how this one would work, but I do know that it is most warranted, and it definitely had to make the list because Bloodborne is an IP that Sony has that has massive appeal, and it would sell units and more consoles of the PSVR 2. And the last game on this list, ladies and gentlemen, is The Last of Us. Now, I personally fell off on the series of The Last of Us. Not only do you have Sony creating a definitive version of a game that was a definitive version of a game that already came out so long ago, and I love that game and I cherish that game, but I still feel personally that that wasn't the move, and I'll always say that. And for the second game, I really don't want to get involved in or talk about on this video, but let's just say I did not like that game at all, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I am pretty qualified to speak on this topic without sounding like a viper, but if we could have some kind of off story or something that's in the Last of Us universe that doesn't involve the main characters, maybe you're just a survivor trying to scrape by and they use the Last of Us franchise to pitch this instead of trying to be certain characters in the story that's already established. I feel like that could be something well worth exploring, because then maybe we can have another installment of The Last of Us full-fledged game with those characters. And obviously Last of Us is big with a lot of people, so we could have some kind of PSVR 2 version with the franchise to also sell more consoles. Because listen guys, we need this thing to hit massive appeal so Sony can invest massive stuff into it, massive experiences into it, and massive fucking AAA experiences, because they are testing the waters with Horizon. So make sure you support that. And that concludes the list here, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure you stay up to date with everything VR. Let me be your VR hype beast, because I am excited, and there's too much YouTube clickbaiters going on crazy stressing about stuff that really does not matter, because what we love and what we're passionate about, we're going to outshine the hate and negativity when the console's not even out yet. So smash that like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless and peace.